So, what is Unai Emery's master plan for Marcus Rashford and just this new Villa team in general? And I say new because they've got rid of John Duran. You brought in Marcus Rashford. You brought in Marco Asensio. You've also got Garcia at right back, but you've also got Disasi on loan. Lots of changes to this team. But how is it going to affect how they set up? What brought me to make this video is I've been writing about Aston Villa this week for work and basically just analysing how this is going to look. And what I've came to is why I think they've gone for these changes. Now I'm just going to quickly read out a few stats just to sort of speak about why they might be undergoing a slight tactical change or why Emery's going to try and sort of extract something a bit different from this team. Aston Villa ranks 6th in the Premier League when it comes to creating big chances. That's 2.21 created per 90. But in comparison, their shot volume is relatively poor. They actually rank 14th for shots per game with 12.5, which again, in contrast, if you're creating the 6th most amount of big chances, but then you're only having 12.5 per game, which is in the bottom half of the table for that position. Not only that, but they've also only scored 34 goals. And that puts them 12th in the division for goals scored. Now, when you take into account as well, John Duran's got 7 of those goals in the Premier League. So you start to backtrack. You take the 7 away from 34, 27 goals now that have been scored without John Duran. So you need to find a way to implement this team with goals, considering you're now only going to have basically Ollie Watkins as your main man through the middle, right? So how can you sort of figure that around and find a new way to get some goals into this side, but also get the best out of the pieces that you've already got at your disposal? Because, like we've said, Morgan Rogers all season, one of the best players in the league in terms of form. He's been absolutely smashing it. At times, he's looked like one of the better players in the league, is what I mean by that. And how can you maximise him more whilst also getting the best out of, say, a piece like Rashford, who's going to come in, and can you get the best out of him? Can you get him back up to that level that you know? Because if you get the best out of Marcus Rashford, Watkins, you're going to get a lot more goals from Rashford. And of course, then you've got Asensio as well, who's going to be able to sort of play a role with the likes of Rodgers. So, how did Manchester City, how did Aston Villa set up? Currently, you would have this right winger, probably Leon Bailey, holding that width out here. You then have Rodgers or somebody in here, sort of just the number 10 in that half space. You then actually have whoever's playing on the left in this occasion. So sometimes they do it with Rodgers starting on the left, drifting inside, and this being McGinn. Sometimes the other way around. Sometimes this is Jacob Ramsey, and he ends up in here. And that allows Digne to sort of provide the width. So you end up with that sort of shape when we take the arrows away. Of course, then Garcia can also, or Matty Cash on other occasions, they can link up with someone like Leon Bailey and create these little 2v1s. We've always got these two centre-backs. You've got Tielemans, who can sort of float in the middle. This has been Kamara or whoever's been fit at the time, but Anana, I would say, is probably their best option whenever he is fit in there. So how would this change? Because I don't think you really want to be bringing Rashford into that pocket, especially if this is going to be the layout of the team. Now, you've got to consider Leon Bailey will probably still play a lot of minutes, as will Daniel Marlon, who's been signed. And again, he's another option who can play through the middle now that you've got rid of Duran, but you can also play him on this outside. It's a bit more of an outlet winger, running in behind, a bit more like what Rashford offers you on the left. That's what sort of Marlon would offer you on the right. But how do I think this is going to shift? Well, I think the best way for Villa to now occupy these spaces and sort of shift on the ball to get the best out of this current group would be to have, because if you think about how much running power is on this side of the pitch with Rashford and Watkins, if you're keeping Rashford out wide, Watkins in the middle, Rodgers, what is going to happen is defenders are going to get dragged all the way back here to the point where Rodgers in this half space is going to have so much freedom to drop in, drive the ball forward, arrive behind these two who are dragging markers away. And he's going to end up with so much freedom on the edge of that box where he's going to be able to create even more than he has done already this season. So I do think the best way to sort of maximise what they're doing with this team is for Rodgers to start in the 10, Asensio to start on the right, Rashford to start on the left. Rashford to hold that width. Now, that's not to say Digne can't join in, because you are going to need that. But essentially to switch the dynamics. And I think a big part of these two moves is that they work well together, because if you now imagine this is Jacob Ramsey and this is Bailey, you're now going to do it the other way around. So what you've got is the opportunity to switch the dynamics of a game. So if you've started with Asensio, he's going into here, and you're essentially creating that shape like this. That's more or less a little bit of an asymmetric 3-2-4-1. With Asensio going into the pocket with Rodgers, that's your two pocket players in here. And you got Rashford holding a bit of width. He's going to be a direct threat in there. Watkins, of course, can go either way. And again, this is going to be your width provider. Can they connect? Little 2v1s here. Make things happen. And then, of course, you can have these players sort of like that can create a triangle with Watkins. Little combination plays that can happen. But now, like I said, if you switch if this becomes, say, Bailey and Rashford became Jacob Ramsey, then it could go back to normal. So instead of having your right winger tuck inside and your right back provide width, Digne can now provide the width. Jacob Ramsey can come inside, and it can all shuffle along again, and you can still create that same sort of pattern, but it would be with different players. This is Jacob Ramsey, this is Donyell Marlon or Bailey. And again, I just think the options that they're going to give themselves with this, you can have Rashford who can play as the striker. You've also got Marlon who can play as the striker. So you've got Watkins, Rashford, Marlon. Even Asensio, who can play as a false nine in the absence of Watkins. So something else that could be really interesting is imagine Watkins is Bailey, for example, and you've got Bailey or Marlon. You've got Marlon out here, and you've got Rashford out here, and you want them two to be both providing your width, and you sort of stick with the back four, and Rodgers ends up having, you basically create that 4-2-4, that 4-2-2-4, or 4-2-4, but 4-2-2-2. Basically what De Zerbi did a lot from deep build-up, and it's sort of caught on in the trends that you have a striker and a centre attacking mid dropping into these pockets, and then your advanced players are actually your wingers, and you're trying to sort of drag the centre-backs into here so that these players can spin into these channels inside. So that looks a bit messy, but that is now another option that you can have with Asensio being that one to drop in there. And again, Watkins can do that. If you want Watkins to do this, again, he's more of a stretching behind striker, which is why Asensio would make a little bit more sense. That would be sort of if Watkins wasn't playing, but it doesn't mean if it's not something that you can do. And I think these signings, I think Asensio and Rashford together, I just draw a box around them. I think that what they add more than anything is, like I said in the Squawka piece that I did, I'll link that in the description for you guys if you want to read the written piece that I did about this. It has all the stats and all the reasoning behind why I think they've picked up Rashford and how he's going to help. But I think it's going to add not only shot volume, because Rashford brings a lot of shots, Asensio brings the creation factor, which again we said isn't a big issue. They're creating a lot of big chances, but just to get that shot tally up a little bit as well, and giving Rodgers that extra space here to get a few extra long shots off, that ups the tally as well. Everything sort of brings that tally up slightly. But also, I think it's just tactical flexibility. I think now with these signings, Emery now has the opportunity to switch things around a little bit more than he did with, say, just a Duran coming on from the bench. And I think he felt a little bit stuck with Duran and Watkins, where it was either one of them playing up front. And I think he tried it on a few occasions with playing both of them through the middle in more of a 4-4-2, but it was very, very rare. In this case, I think with Marlon, Asensio, Rashford as other attacking options alongside Watkins, I think it just gives him a lot more freedom to sort of tactically change the game up. So let me know what your thoughts on that is in the comments down below. Like I said, I think the best way, I'm going to leave it on screen to sort of phase out the video. I think the way that we'll see a lot from this team is like this, with this three at the back here, these two in here. Again, you've got these two in the pockets, which is going to be really, really strong. And then you got these two providing width, and Watkins, again, he's going to make those runs in behind. With this amount of stretch power, I think Rodgers is going to be the main beneficiary of all of this, because these two running in behind are just going to create so much room for Rodgers to sort of roam in here and just really be an effective ball carrier like he already is. So let me know what you think about that. Drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.